Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Terumos Perek Ches Halacha Dalet. We are learning today Daf Pei. We're starting Mamish on top of the Amid Amar Loin Rabbi Yossi. And let's quickly review the first two cases in the Mishnah and the statement that were made by the Chavraya that will be challenged both today and tomorrow. So the Mishnah gave two scenarios. First case was where one had a barrel of truma wine, as an example, that had the status of safek tamei, otherwise known as tuluya. Tuluya, the word tuluya literally means suspended. Kevan, based on the premise that we're going to go through in more detail today, that if truma is tahira, one is obligated to guard it, to safeguard it, to prevent it from becoming tamei. When truma is tamei, it must be burnt. You can have benefit from the burning, but it has to be burnt. It may not be eaten. When there is a safek tuma, we paskin that truma has to be tuluya. You leave it suspended. You're not allowed to contaminate it. On the other hand, you're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to burn it. You wait until when it becomes tamei vadai. That's called tuluya. So that was the case of the Mishnah. And what we had between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua was the following. Rabbi Eliezer holds that even though it's already tuluya, the same type of obligation one has to safeguard truma tohira, preventing it from becoming tamei, the same is for truma tuluya. Rabbi Yeshua holds that the type of truma that has to be safeguarded is truma that you will eat. Since it may not be consumed, not only do you not have to safeguard it, you can actually bring it closer to Tuma. You can expose it. You can put it in a place where over there it's going to become Tamei very quickly. However, Rabbi Yeshua, by making that statement, implies that to be Metame it be Yadayim, to actively contaminate it, that you may not do. Then the Mishnah gave the first case. Safek, Tuma, even Rabbi Yeshua, you cannot be Metame it be Yadayim, even though you can take steps to bring it closer to Truma. Second case in the Mishnah was the case where you had Truma that was going to become Tamei. It was going to happen. And whatever the detail is, the only way to prevent the chulin, so again, the case is that you had a barrel of Truma, Tohaira, and it fell into some sort of machine that at the end, when it's going to work its way through it, through the press, it's going to land in chulin Tamein. And what happens is, B'chlal, when Truma falls into Chulin, if you don't have the ratio, it becomes Meduma. Meduma is not the end of the world, even though there's a financial loss, but a Kohen can eat Meduma. A Kohen can eat Meduma. But a Kohen cannot eat Meduma that's Tamei. Here, when the Truma Tohira falls into Chulin Tamein, it's not just Meduma. It's Meduma that's Tamei that cannot be consumed. The Keli, there is a utensil. The utensil is Tamei. If the kohen or the person, anyone, if he were to take the keli and he would catch the wine before it falls into the chulin tamein, even though doing so is considered contaminating the truma, it's considered contaminating the truma. Why would you do that? Because it's going to become tamei anyways, and at least over here, hefsid meruba, as we'll see tomorrow, you're going to prevent all of the chulin from becoming inedible, not even to a kohen. Rabbi Yeshua says you could do that. In other words, here, not only does he say that you don't have to safeguard it because it's not going to be edible anyways, it's going vade to become tamei, he actually allows you to contaminate it actively. Now, I know that yesterday Shlomo Horowitz asked the question, why are you calling this actively contaminating it? Why is it called actively contaminating it? You're not touching it. You're capturing it. He was implying that maybe this is not called mamish direct, and I'm going to say that what came, first of all, I thought the Gemara is going to speak about it, it doesn't. I already learned I had two daf. In Bava Kama, daf Chav Vav Amid Beis, that's what came to me. We had that whole topic by hezek and by murder. By murder is someone threw someone else off the roof. They're going to die when they hit the ground. So the Reuven did that, and Shimon stands, and he picks up a sword, and the guy falls onto the sword. Who's the murderer? Whether we say Gavra Kotal or Kotal. And Me'inyan Le'inyan, even though we don't paskin the same, I threw a utensil off the roof. When it's going to hit the ground, it's going to break. And then Shimon, before it hit the ground, broke it. Who is chayiv? I'm just using these examples where the guy with the sword is actively a murderer. The only reason why the guy won't be chayiv is because the guy was going to die anyways. In other words, capturing truma in a utensil that's tamei is called actively contaminating it. Even though you understand, it's like the wine with gravity is falling into the utensil. That's what Shlomo was implying. It is considered active. So first of all, when you read the Mishnah, you wonder, like, how far does Rabbi Yeshua go? So comes along the Chavraya, and I want to say the following. We have enough time. This is so geschmack. I'm going to go to Babli Psachim Daf Yud Dalid. Actually, what we're doing right now, we're going to have to do in the next year again. Heads up. There is a Mishnah. And then there is a machlekes between Rabbi Yechanan and Reish Lakish, how to understand the Mishnah. And everything that we're learning now is following Reish Lakish's understanding. The Mishnah begins with the following. Rab Chanina Sgan HaKoyanim. Because of the opening of the Mishnah, many dafim in Psachim, basically until the end of Perek Rishon, is known as the sugya of Rab Chanina Sgan HaKoyanim, which is a real, huge sugya of Tumah V'Tara in the Bavli. But how does it begin? So he writes like this. Miyemeim shel koyanim loy nimnu umilisraif es habasar shenitma bevlada tuma im habasar shenitma ba'ava tuma. In the Beis Hamikdash, when consecrated meat becomes contaminated, it has to be burnt. Whether the pyre was in the azara, those were for the foods that if they would have been pure, it would have been eaten in the azara. Whether it can be on the harabayis, machne levia, or in Yerushalmi, it has to be burnt. Question is, can you burn two types of basar, tameim, that are in a different level of tumah? And it's such a different level of tumah that when they touch each other, the one that's, let's say, a shlishi will now become a sheni. You're burning it anyways. It's tamei anyways, but you're making it more contaminated. And Rabbi Chanina Sgan HaKoyanim says you can do that. I'm not going to get into the details now. And Hoisev Rabbi Akiva, same thing happened with shemen shenifsal. That even if oil became tummy with a tful yoim, which means the shemen is tummy on the level of a sheni, you with a sheni, you can have that oil that you have to burn because it's consecrated oil that became tummy with other oil that became tummy with a mace, oil that's an av. What happens when this touches an av? It becomes a rishon. So it went from a shlishi to a rishon. Rabbi Akiva says you can do that. In other words, even though when you're burning it together, you're adding to the tumah, anyways you're burning it. That's how the Mishnah opened. Now here are the key words. Amar Rabbi Meir, midivreim lamadnu. Midivreim lamadnu, we're going to see tomorrow, Daf, we're going to see Rabbi Yechanan over there in Pesachim says, midivreim lamadnu is the hemshach of the Mishnah. That from Rab Chanina Sgan HaKoyanim and from Rabbi Akiva, that in the Beis Hamikdash they would burn tamei, meat or oil, even though they would burn it together in a way that they would make one become more tamei, we learn that you can burn truma tohira im tameya bepesach. Well, that's the case that we spoke about yesterday. You have chametz, that's truma. Chametz has to be burnt whether it's tamei or tahor. You have to burn the chametz anyway. You can burn them together, even though you're making the truma tohira tamei. How did he learn it? He learned it. It sounds like from Rabbi Chanina Sgan HaKoyanim. Now there's a big problem. What's the big problem, Yakir? The big problem is that both Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Akiva, we were speaking about cases where oil was tamei, the meat was tamei. Alama, it was tamei tumakala, and you're making it tamei tumachamura. Here they're speaking about taking truma that's mamish tohira. That's why Reish Lakish, we're going to go straight with Reish Lakish. When Rav Meir says midivreim lamadnu, says Reish Lakish, midivreim lamadnu has nothing to do with Rabbi Chanina Sgan HaKoyanim. Reish Lakish says, midivreim lamadnu has to do with Trumais Perek Ches, what we're learning right now. That from our Mishnah, midivreim lamadnu, midivreim must mean from the second case, from Rabbi Yeshua, that you can capture Truma Tohoira in Kalim that are Tamei, because it's going to become Tamei anyways. At least you're saving, like there's a Hefsid, same thing Hefsid. Why should you have to make two pyres? You're spending more wood. Anyways, you're going to burn it. That's the link that we learned yesterday. I think we read the Rashirilya or the Marafulda. That is the way Reish Lakish understands that Mishnah. Now, I'll read the whole Mishnah. So, Amar Rav Meir midivreim lo madnu shesarfen truma toirim tameya. Amar Rav Yosi enem en amida. It's not a good comparison. And what's not a good comparison? He says that moedim Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua. It fits now. because he says Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. In our Mishnah Pesachim Yudalad, there's no Rabbi Eliezer, there's no Rabbi Yeshua. It's Rab Chanina, Sekana Kahanim, and Abba Akiva. Clearly, Rabbi Yossi is referring to our Mishnah. He says, no, that you have to burn them separately. He says they only argue by Teluya. Rabbi Yossi quotes the first case of the Mishnah, that by Teluya, he would be Moida. That's what he's saying. That Rabbi Yeshua says you can burn them together. Means even according to Rabbi Yossi, by Truma Teluya, you can burn them together. So it's not so simple now. Now you really got what the Mishnah says. Then on Pesachim Daf Tezvav, like we mentioned, Omer Reish Lakish, the second line from the top over there, that Midivreim Lo Madnu, he says, cannot be from the Mishnah. It must mean from Trumais, from our Machlokes, and many, many more details over there in Pesachim, and we'll have to come back to some of them. I just wanted to read it out over here. Now, I want to read the words that we learned yesterday from the Chavraya. Chavraya was bothered in the inconsistency b'shitas Rabbi Yeshua. Could you at kedei kach actively contaminate it, or can you bring it close to Tumah? Right? And what they said is, I'm reading the words, Chaviyas Harishoina, that means the first case of the Mishnah. Right? Rab Meir is the one that says over there in Pesachim that you can burn to Hoida and Tameya. It means you can mamish be metamet. He says, Chaviyas Harishoina is Kirab Yosi. V'leis Rav Meir Moida. The Chavraya are saying that if, first of all, Rabbi Yosi and Rav Meir are both arguing in the Shita of Rabbi Yeshua. Each one had another version of Shitas Rabbi Yeshua. Our Mishnah in the Reisha that says, Rabbi Yeshua says you expose it, you put it in a place where it will become Tamei, but you don't actively contaminate it. That's only Rabbi Yosi. The Chavraya came to the conclusion that if Rav Meir would have authored the first case in our Mishnah in Trumais, Rabbi Yeshua would have held even more. He would have said that since it's Safek anyways, can't do anything. That's what Kevin was saying. You can't eat it. Someone will accidentally eat it. Truma Tameya we burn. And we said not you could burn, you have to burn. You don't want it, there's a michshel. Go contaminate it. The Chavraya said that Rav Meir Beshitas Rabbi Yeshua would have said that you contaminate it. That was statement number one of the Chavraya. Then Chavraya made statement two, that Vahashniya, that means Chaviyashniya, that means the second case where it's falling into the Chulin Tameyin, that the Mishnah says that you can actually capture it in a Keli. Chavraya says that only follows Rav Meir. V'leis Rabbi Yosi Moideba. According to Rabbi Yosi, that you cannot burn Tameim to Hoida, that's what you're doing. Even Rabbi Yeshua would not say, according to Rabbi Yossi, that you can capture it in Kalim that are Tameim because you're actively contaminating it.
Rabbi Yossi didn't know that second part of the Mishnah?
He knew that. In other words, Rabbeinu HaKadosh compiled the Mishnah. The Reisha was only quoting Shitas Rabbi Yossi, and the Seifa was quoting Shitas Rav Meir. We have this on occasion, even though it's a doichik. The whole daf today will be to refute this. That cannot be. So we're going to spend some time refuting. I'm going to call this statement number one. Statement number one was about the Reisha. The words of the Chavraya is, Chaviyas Harishoina Kerav Yosi v'leis Rav Meir Moida. The Chavraya are saying that in the case of a Safek, Rav Meir will hold that you can contaminate it. The whole Gemara today was said by Rabbi Yosi da Amoida, not Tatana, Rabbi Yosi bar Zevida. Da Amoida Rabbi Yosi. He's going to prove to you that even Rabbi Meir holds that by Safek Tuma, you cannot contaminate. He's going to prove it. So he argues with the Chavraya. He's also, the Gemara is going to prove, now we're going to quote Braisas, we're going to have fascinating cases today. We're going to have time to learn the whole daf. And then we're going to prove that the second statement, Vahashniya, ki Rabbi Meir, v'leis Rabbi Yosi Moideba, he'll show you that Rabbi Yosi is Moida. Actually, Rabbi Yosi bar Zevida will show you that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yosi, both the Reisha and the Seifa, as we'll see today, and we're going to fine-tune it. In other words, every case is a case. I'll give you one big heads up that's going to be even in tomorrow's daf. There is a component in the Seifa in which you can actively contaminate that has to do with Hefsid Meruba. Pashut, you have a lot of wine. If the truma is going to fall into the chulin tameim, none of it will be allowed to be consumed. We have this throughout Yoyra Deya. You know, this hefsid, the hefsid meruba, making two pyres, which is what Rabbi Yossi says in the Mishnah over there in Pesachim. You can't burn them together. Okay, the Gemara does not, you benefit by only having to make one fire. You benefit a few logs of wood, but it's not called hefsid meruba. Here, there's a hefsid meruba. That's going to be a key. We're only going to get to that on Daf Pei Aleph. I'm just giving you a heads up. Okay, let's go. It's very gishmak. It's very beautiful. Omar loin Rabbi Yosi, guys. This Rabbi Yosi, don't confuse it. We're speaking of Meir Rabbi Yosi are Tanoim and Mesechtos Pesachim. So every time I say Rabbi Yosi, we're going to call him Rabbi Yosi Bar Zevida, just to remember that this is the Amoida. So Omar loin them is the Chavraya. Chavraya b'shem Rabbi Lazar. I know that, but the Chavraya that came to this understanding, Rabbi Yosi told him, Chamun ma'aton Amram. Take a look at what you're saying. What you're saying cannot be. Now we're beginning with the first statement. The first statement is Chav Yisor ki Rabbi Yosi v'leis Rav Meir Moida. What the Chavraya says is that according to Rav Meir, when you have Truma Tuluya, Rav Meir will hold that you can actively contaminate it and burn it. And burn it. Can be. You're telling me Chav Yisor only follows ki Rabbi Yosi. Ha ki Rav Meir, but according to Rav Meir, you would be able to burn it. Now, I don't mean burning it while it's Tuluya. Burning it means you contaminate it and burn it. Make it tummy and burn it right away. So the Gemara says, this cannot be. First of all, why can it not be? Because there is a Tana Rab Shimon. Now, we're going to have to open up the Gemara in Pesachim again. Even though we read a Mishnah, and Rabbi Yosi made a statement, the Gemara makes it clear. The Gemara there already says, the Gemara is going to bring it over here also, that part of that Mishnah was not Rabbi Yosi, was Rab Shimon. We know, we'll see soon, that Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, he's the one that says, Truma Tuluya, you burn. That's what he holds. If Rav Meir would agree to him, it would come out that throughout Shas, you have to know the whole thing, there would be only three opinions, three Tanoim that opined. Rab Shimon, we know, is the one that says that you burn Truma Tuluya, you make it Tameh and you burn it. Rabbi Yosi is the one that says that absolutely not. He called it Tuluya. Wait until when it becomes Tameh. If Rav Meir would be holding the way the Chavraya said, it would come out that it would be 2 against 1. It would come out that Rav Meir and Rab Shimon have the same opinion, and we would never have paskin like Rabbi Yosi. That's the first point that he wants to make.
Rav Shimon says surfeit.
Yes.
That means you just burn it as it is right now, and it's crushed.
I'm not 100% certain. Maybe you have to first be matamid, but you for sure can be matamid. That nuance, I don't.
Isn't that what I'm saying?
That's what Kavan said yesterday. Just
no, I'm saying, isn't that his opinion for Meir? Meaning
yeah,
it could actually be matamid.
For sure. Either Rab Shimon says actively matamid and burn it, or straight burn it. It's the same thing. If you can burn it, you can be matamid. Same thing. In other words, I'm not certain whether Rab Shimon holds that you have to be matamid before you burn it, or whether he mamash holds just burn it. But it's the same neshama. Since we know, and the Gemara will quote something that we learned in Pesachim, that Rab Shimon holds that truma tuluya, that means it's questionable whether it's tamei or not. You burn. If that we know, that's for sure. According to you, the Chavraya, Rav Meir and Rab Shimon are on one side against Rabbi Yosi. So v'yirbu Rav Meir Rab Shimon al Rabbi Yosi v'yisreifu, and we know Rabbi Yosi Bar Zevida says that we don't paskin that you burn tuluya. Why not? The only reason why we don't paskin, you have to know the Klolei Hashas, is because it's Rab Shimon and Rabbi Yosi. So we paskin like Rabbi Yosi, the Tana Rabbi Yosi. But if it would have been Rav Meir and Rabbi Yosi against Rab Shimon, then we would not have paskined. Rav Meir and Rab Shimon against Rabbi Yosi, we wouldn't have paskin like Rabbi Yosi. That's number one. Now, first of all, how do we know that we don't paskin? How do we know that we don't paskin like Rab Shimon? Maybe we do. So again, all of these things are missing. So the Pnei Moshe, from all of them, look inside 7 lines from the top. V'yirbu Rab Meir Rab Shimon al Rabbi Yosi, because of the rule, the Yachad Rabbi Malach Kerabim, and we should always paskin v'yisrifu kol safik truma betruma. We don't paskin that way. How do we know that? From a Mishnah. From a Mishnah in Taras. The Mishnah, and by the way, the Rambam quotes this Mishnah almost verbatim. The Mishnah says that there are only 6 fekois for which you burn the truma. That's the exception. Clear. Remember that? I remember learning this in the Rambam not that long ago, when we came off Tara. It's always never that long ago. The first of the 6 is Beis HaPras. Okay. In other words, the fact that we say that there are only 6 cases of doubt for which you burn the truma, implying that all of the other cases of sveikas, you don't burn it. So we know from the Mishnah that we don't burn it. That's why it's called teluya. You leave it, you wait, you suspend it. But why would it be so? So that's number one. V'oid min adam. Further evidence. In other words, that Rabbi Yossi Bar Zavida is proving that we don't paskin like Rab Shimon, because it can't be Rav Meir holds like him. How do we know that? From the Anochami, I saw. This is what Rabbi Yossi Bar Zavida is saying. That Rabbanon, there was a group of Chachamim in his time in the Amoraim that also Uvda Kameyan, his colleagues, they were the Poiskim, they were the Rabbanim. In front of them came a case. It was a case of Safek Tuma, and they passed. And I saw Halacha Lamaisa, V'Amrin, and the Chachamim, all of the Amoraim paskin that Ezel Tlei. They used the words Telia, suspended, wait, befedish. In other words, they told him, wait until it becomes Vadei Tamei, and then go burn it. So it can be that Rav Meir holds that Safek Tuma could be actively contaminated. Can be he holds that. If he would have held it, we would have paskin that way. Now, before we go on, he gave it to you as a given that Rab Shimon holds you burn it. How do you know Rab Shimon holds you burning? Okay. Vaha Ashkechan, this is just the source of Rab Shimon, and this is from the Mishnah that we quoted. Vaha Ashkechan the Amar Rab Shimon. Where do we find that I said Rab Shimon says Sarfin is from the Mishnah Psachim and Babli Psachim Yudalid? That after Rabbi Yossi told Rav Meir, Eina min amida, you cannot burn chametz tohoira, truma chametz tohoira with truma chametz temeya. You cannot burn them together. But he said that Moide Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, that they both agree shesarfin zula atzma v'zula atzma. That's what it sounds like Rabbi Yossi is saying. That if it's Tahoid and Tamei, everyone holds that you separate them. However, where do they disagree? The Gemara's Iker Chasim and Asefer. Where do they disagree? The Mishnah, we just read the words. By if you have Chametz Truma Tameya, and you have Chametz Truma Teluya, Rabbi Eliezer says burn them separately, like our Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer holds Teluya is like the Hoida. You have to safeguard it. And Rabbi Yeshua holds that you burn them together. Now, what does burning it together means, guys? When you learn that over there, there's a problem. What's the problem? Think about what the Mishnah says. Aviv, it's simple. The Mishnah says that Rabbi Yeshua says, that Tohoida and Tameya, everyone holds you can't burn together. You can't actively be matamed. But if it's Safek, Rabbi Yeshua says you can burn it with the Tamei. Hold on. What did we learn in our Mishnah? What's the ratio of our Mishnah? The ratio of our Mishnah says that if the issue is Safek, the second case of our Mishnah is it's now Tahar, but it's for sure going to become Tamei. The first case of our Mishnah, it's now a Safek. What did Rabbi Yeshua say? You cannot actively contaminate it. So if there's a problem with the Mishnah Psach, and the Mishnah says, where do they disagree? If it's Tameya and Teluya, the Mishnah says that Rabbi Yeshua says that you burn them together. It can be Rabbi Yeshua said that. If he would have said that over there, he would have said over here, contaminated. And that's why the Gemara Dir and Psachim says that it was a mistake. That even though Rebbe wrote that where do they disagree? The words in the Mishnah. Where does Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua disagree? I'm reading the words. Umoidem Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua shesarfen zulatzim zulatzma. Al menechliku. Where do they argue? Al teluya va'al tamei. You have chametz truma teluya, chametz truma temeya. Rabbi Eliezer says also burn them separately. Tisarek zulad zulatzma. Rabbi Yeshua oimer shteim ka'achas. The Gemara there and here says that's not Rabbi Yeshua, that's Rab Shimon. To make it clear. That's the way they avoided a stira between Rabbi Yeshua and Psachim and Rabbi Yeshua and Terumas. But one thing we see, that the Rab Shimon allows you to contaminate Truma Safek. That's the Rab Shimon. Ironically, in other words, the source of Rab Shimon is the same Mishnah after we amended it. And V'amar Rabbi Yechanan, for there not to be a stira between over there in Psachim and the first case of Trumais, that the Rab Shimon Shanya. So that's Gavaldik. So here we have a source. Okay. Now, we're not done yet. another proof, another kasha of Rabbi Yossi bar Zevida against the first statement of Chevraya that says, Chav Yisrael Rishoina only ke Rabbi Yossi. V'leis Rav Meir Moida. Because Rav Meir will hold that you can actively contaminate it. Can be. Because if you are right, that you Chevraya, that Rav Meir holds when you have Safek, Tuma, Truma, you can burn it, contaminate it and burn it. Hatani, we learned in a Braisa that this Braisa is Gavaldik. Here we're speaking about something that happens on occasion where Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. Now normally, Aviv, we burn the Chametz Erev Pesach, right? You can't make a fire on Shabbos. What do we do today? We do two things today. First of all, we make a fire on Friday. Not only do we make a fire on Friday, but we make it in the same zman that we would normally make it. We don't want people to get confused, even though you can argue theoretically you can burn it up until Shabbos. But we don't do it. We actually, the same Shah Hamishis that we make a fire every year, right here in LA, it's like from 11:15 to 11:45, more or less, 10:42, whenever the time is, we make a fire, but we don't burn everything. Why don't we burn everything, Aviv? Because we have to have Lechem Mishnah on Shabbos, right? So we keep, the 3 bilkalach, and what happens if you have crumbs? We dispose of it on Shabbos. Some people today throw it in the toilet. Some people, if there's an Eruv, they throw it into the Rosh Hashanah, whatever they do. That's what we do. There, the Braisa that we are quoting is speaking about Truma. Same problem. Truma, that's Chametz. And Abmeir holds that Truma, Tuluya, Utemeya, Soirfin Oisem Erev Shabbos Im Chashecha Divrei Rav Meir. Rav Meir is really saying two dinim. Number one is that regular chametz, trumas chametz, has to be burnt on Friday. In other words, we don't have the option of leaving it for Shabbos. We don't have that option. It has to be burnt on Friday. Eloma, normal, regular chametz. I'll tell you what we do nowadays, Danny. We burn it during the Zman of Biur, even though it's not really that Zman, but we do during the Shach HaMishas. Okay. What about Truma Tuluya? So Rab Meir holds that Truma Tuluya, don't burn that then. Burn it the last moment. Burn it right before a Shabbos. Now, why do we say that? So I want to right now introduce that really there are two types of Tuluya. I want to tell you something. There is a Truma Tuluya that is Tuluya because halachically we have a doubt. And sometimes there's Truma Tuluya because I don't yet know the halacha. I don't know the halacha. And it's possible that I'm going to discover that this Truma is not Tameh at all. You with me? So for me to go ahead and to burn it together with Truma Tameya, maybe it's going to be Tohaira. And I want to go another nuance, not negaya so much. Even where you have a suffix, Tuma, we always have the concept, Shema Yaveh Eliyahu, and Eliyahu Navi is going to paskin. I don't want to get into that whole topic because it's really trade Allah Vashamayim, but we have another rule that Eliyahu Navi, first of all, according to Chassam Sofer, whenever he comes embodied, he's able to paskin, number one. Number two, even if he's not coming embodied and trade Allah Vashamayim, he's not allowed to paskin the halacha, trade Allah Vashamayim. But if the halachic doubt is because of a suffix of Mitzias, we don't know what happened. Right? The guy walked into the room, there were toisvis, and there were 2 barrels. He knows he touched one. He doesn't remember which one he touched. Eliyahu Navi is trusted to come and say that I know that he touched the one on the right. The one on the right is Tameh, the one on the left is Tar. In other words, there's always a possibility that maybe we'll discover the halacha. So you don't burn it right away. That's the key. That you wait until the last moment. It has to be burned. So you can't dispose of it on Shabbos. You have to burn it on Friday. You can't burn on Shabbos. You can't make a fire. But you burn it in Chashecha. But he's saying that in Chashecha, a moment before Lich mentioned, you can burn, Rav Meir holds, you can burn the Tuluya and the Tameya. Now, the Chachamim argue with all of it. The Chachamim hold that you don't burn it at all. Dispose of it the way we do nowadays. Dispose of it. Also, in other words, eat, if it's Tohaira, eat the Truma. And whatever you cannot eat, the crumbs, throw it out, throw it into the river. There's things that you could do Shabbos. Throw it b'Rosh Hashanah when there's an Eruv. Today you flush it down the toilet. No, that's a whole different topic, whether you have to burn it, whether you can dispose it. So we're not going to look at the sheet of the Chachamim. We're looking at the sheet of Rab Meir. Rab Meir holds that you can only burn the Tuluya and the Tameya im Chashecha. Now, What do we have? What is the Chavraya saying? This is Gavaldik. What did the Chavraya say in our Mishnah, Aviv? That according to Rabbi Meir, whenever you have Safek Tuma, you have these two barrels. Rav Meir will hold you can be metamit right away. Actively be metamit. It can't be, because if Rav Meir would have held that, he wouldn't have said im chashecha. The truma tuluya utemeya sort from im chashecha. The reason why you wait until the end is not because of the truma temeya. Truma temeya should be burnt early, just to make it clear. What Rav Meir is saying is that if you didn't burn the truma temeya on time, you have to, the tuluya, you can only burn the last second. Wait. Even Rav Meir in the Braisa is not allowing you to actively metamit so quick. Now, by the way, there's an exception. There's no other option. Rav Meir holds you have to burn it. Can't burn it on Shabbos. So you wait until at the last second you have to burn it. That clearly goes against the Chavraya. The Chavraya, they said in our Mishnah is not speaking about the Chametz, Erev Shabbos. We're not talking about any of that. The Mishnah says you have Safek Tumei, and the Chavraya is saying that Rav Meir doesn't agree with Rabbi Yeshua. Rav Meir holds that Rabbi Yeshua holds that you can actively contaminate it whenever you want, clearly against the Brais. So the Gemara says, for that I can answer. Daf Pei Amud Beis. And like I said, there are two types of Tuluyas. Amar Rab Ze'ero Kumi Rav Mana, that proof of Rabbi Yossi Bar Zevida, I can answer. Tiftar, I can interpret the Braisa. Why does the Braisa hold that Rav Meir says that the Tuluya, you have to only burn it the last second? That's because it's a Tuluya that there is a possibility for you to discover without the Liyah Navi. You can find out Tuluya not because you already went to the Rav and the Rav Paskint, like the Tosfos says, that when you have two barrels and one of them is Vadai Tameh, you can't Paskin Safek Tameh B'Reshus Yachid Tameh. You can't say that because both are not Tameh. So you have to Paskin Safek. That's one type of Safek. Another type of Safek is that I don't know the halachas. I didn't ask a Rav yet. So therefore, I'm treating it as if it's Tameh. I have a doubt. So Tiftar, that maybe when do you have to wait? Only B'Teluya Shadati Lisha, which means that if you have a Safek Tuma that you already asked the Shaila, and the Chachamim Paskind, it's Safek Tameh, Rav Meir will hold, Danny, that you can burn it early. You can burn it Friday morning. So it could fit. So the Gemara says, first of all, that sounds good, right? But it's not going to be good. We're going to knock it off. But first, we're going to try to say, good. Amalei, that means Rav Mana tells Rab Ze'eda, you know what? Kain Amar Rab Yossi. Not only are you right, the one who's challenging the Chavraya, which is Rab Yossi Bar Zevida, he also once spoke about the two types of suffix. Kol teluya danan amrin hachi. All right? That Rabbi Yossi says, when does Rav Meir allow for you to burn safek? Only b'teluya she'ein dat l'yishol oleh. Aval dat l'yishol oleh, you have to treat it like tar. You have to treat it like tar. And indeed, when Rabbi Yossi Bar Zevida said the same differentiation, he quoted the Braisa. Tani, we learned in the Braisa that when you have an owner regarding Tuluya Sha'amar, when the owner says, maybe it's tar, maybe it's tamei, maybe the owner doesn't know. There we say, Harezu Tameya. We have a doubt. We have a suffix whenever we paskin l'chumra, so we treat it as tamei. But if the owner is saying, I have a doubt, but I can ask it off, I'll find out. Then you have to treat it as if it's tar. No, we have such a chiluk. So therefore, the second refutation against Chavraya is not a refutation. The Braisa of Erev Shabbos, Chalias B'Shabbos, Rav Meir says, Im Chashecha, that's because it's a Teluya that you plan, Al Menas Lishal Aleha. I got a problem with that. And the Gemara says, that's not a good answer. And the Gemara just says, My Kedoin, what are you talking about? Without actually saying anything. And I'll tell you why. Again, Chavraya said a big chiddush. What did the Chavraya say, Danny? They said that the Reish of the Mishnah, Chavias Rishoyna, Kerab Yossi v'leis Rav Meir Moida. I have a simple question. Why are you saying that? Why are you making our Mishnah not go like Rav Meir? So what was the logic that we learned? Because according to Rav Meir, you could actively contaminate it. What did we just say right now? That there's a certain type of suffix, a suffix that you are still going to ask it of the din, even Rav Meir is Moida, that you're not allowed to actively contaminate it. So make that our Mishnah. Why are you insisting that the Reish of the Mishnah only follows Rabbi Yossi? V'leis Rav Meir Moedeba? Why? Our Mishnah did not tell you what type of a suffix it is. I know we gave an example from Tosfos, but could be there's another type of suffix. There's a suffix that the balabas, the owner of the barrel of Truma, doesn't know the din, but he knows that there are Rabbanim that know, and there's a possibility that they're going to paskin that it's Tohira. And in that case, even of Moedas Moeda, you cannot contaminate it. So the same way you are explaining Shitas Rav Meir in the Braisa, why would you make the Reisha of our Mishnah only Rabbi Yosef V'leis Rav Meir Moedeba? Rav Meir, Rabbi Yosef and Rav Meir. Even Rav Meir that holds, even if you are right, that you're wrong. You're wrong that Rav Meir says you can contaminate it. If not, it's him and Rav Shimon. That kasha remains. But if Rav Meir will hold, you can actively contaminate it on the type of suffix that they already paskin suffix. But on the other type of suffix that we don't know the din yet, then you can contaminate it. Well, that's the case of our Mishnah. Why are you saying that our Mishnah doesn't follow Rav Meir?
The we're talking about two different types of.
The Reisha. Let me say better. The Reisha is talking about all types. Our Mishnah is about all types of Tuluyas, and therefore Rav Meir, no one is going to say, even if Rav Meir authored the Mishnah, since some Tuluyas, even Rav Meir, even if you're going to say that Rav Meir says like Rav Shimon, which we're arguing, even if you can contaminate it, Rav Meir won't always say that. So the reason why did our Mishnah say in the Reisha that Rabbi Yeshua says that you cannot do it actively, it can even go according to Rav Meir. Okay. Says the Gemara weiter. Okay.
All right, question.
Just one more thing. I just want to. We're middle of a flow over here. The Gemara now is just going to explain the Braisa where Rav Meir says that you have to wait until the end of the day. I'll give you another way of understanding that Braisa. Amar Rabbi Yossi berabun. That's another Rabbi Yossi. That tiftar that the Braisa is speaking about a case shonodol safik tumim dim dumichama v'leis shama minaklum. In other words, maybe Rav Meir holds. Maybe, like the Chavraya, which is going into the second kasha, that any type of suffix, tuma, you can burn. When the Braisa was speaking about burning chametz, that's tuluya, tameya, right? On Friday, all the way at the end of the day, that's because it only became a suffix at the end of the day. In other words, the whole Braisa cannot be used over here in either way. It just happens to be that the Gemara never answered the first kasha. Rabbi Yossi bar Zevida's first kasha stands, and he's insisting that if Rav Meir will hold, that Rabbi Yeshua holds, that you are allowed to actively contaminate and burn chametz, tuluya, truma, tuluya, then we would have had Rabbi Meir, we would have had Rab Shimon, and we would have paskin like them, and we know that we paskin like Rabbi Yossi that you cannot actively contaminate it. So this kasha against the Chavraya stands. Yes. Keva.
Why is it that we only use Eliyahu, the prophet, for one case? You can bring him at any time.
No. We bring him for all cases. Whenever the halacha comes to a doubt, we always mention that doubt could be resolved by Eliyahu. It's not just in one case.
Okay.
It's a general rule.
So,
yes.
do we ever answer that question about like the 2v1?
About what?
But the 2v1 that we made.
No. The Gemara is accepting Rabbi Yossi bar Zevida's challenge. So first of all, even Rav Meir, step number one is the Reish of the Mishnah goes both according to Rabbi Yossi and according to Rav Meir. Are there cases where Rav Meir says you can actively contaminate? Yes. But in our case, in the Reish is speaking about Truma, that is suffix. Truma that suffix, Rabbi Yeshua says that you don't have to safeguard it, but you cannot actively contaminate it. It goes according to everyone. Now we're moving on to the second statement of the Chavraya. What was the second statement of the Chavraya? They said, V'hashniya, the second case of our Mishnah is not suffix. The Truma is Tohoira. It's Vadai going to become Tamei. Vadai. How? By falling into Chul and Tameim. I can do something that's going to make it Tamei a moment earlier, by actively contaminating it, saving the Chul and Tameim, and Rabbi Yeshua in our Mishnah says you could do it. So the Chavraya said that only follows Rabbi Meir. That's what they said. But Rabbi Yossi would not agree to it. Rabbi Yossi from Psachim, that's what the Chavraya said. They would not allow you for you to contaminate it biyodayim. The Gemara says also not true. That's the next question. This now we are refuting the second statement of the Chavraya. The Girsa is so important here. Also says Rabbi Yossi Bar Zavida, you Chavra are saying Chavius Hashniya, the second case of the Mishnah, in which the Mishnah quotes Rabbi Yeshua, that if you cannot salvage at least a revius, then contaminate it. But that only follows Rabbi Meir. But you are arguing Veleis Rabbi Yossi Moideba. No, you're wrong. How do I know you're wrong? Because there's a Braisa in our Mishnah. And that's why I mentioned again, time and again, quoting this Braisa. Our Mishnah, Aviv, is speaking about Truma Tohira, that's falling into Chulin Tameim, but the quantity of the Chulin Tameim is less than the ratio of 100 to 1. Befedish. The Braisa says that. Bamed Dvarim Amurim says the Braisa. No, it's the whole problem is that if the Truma will fall into the Chulin Tameim, it will become a Duma. There is where, let's just quote Rabbi Yeshua. There is where Rabbi Yeshua says, yes, contaminate it in Kalim Tameim and save the Chulin. But Medvar Mamurim says the Braisa, Beboir means the bottom barrel, she'ein boy kedei lahalois. You don't have the ratio of 100 to 1. In other words, if the wine is going to flow into the lower gas, it will become meduma. That's tummy. Guys, chulin tameim is not a problem. Meduma tummy, that's a problem. But Abel says the Braisa, Beboir, she'yesh boy kedei lahalois. Here, if you have the ratio, now Aviv, think about it. If Truma Tohira is falling into Chulin Tameim, but you have the ratio of 100 against 1, what will be the status of everything there? Chulin Tameim. There's no loss with Chulin Tameim. So there, afilu kol shuhu asr l'tamais. Even the Braisa says, Rabbi Shua will be maida, that you can't save even a drop. You can't save anything. Now, hold on a second. You are telling me, you Chevrayim, that the second case of our Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir. Guys, in the case of Psachim, what do you have? You have Chametz Tohoira. Look at Rabbi Meir. You have Chametz Tameya. What does Rabbi Meir say? You can put them together. Why can you put them together? Because since anyways, no one is going to be eating the chametz. I know it's truma, but you don't have to safeguard it. According to Rav Meir, according to Rabbi Yeshua. Why? Because you can't eat chametz on Pesach, so there's no obligation to safeguard it. If there's no obligation to safeguard it, says Rabbi Meir, you can be metamed biyadayim. Why would he say the same thing over here? If the sefer of our Mishnah is following Rav Meir, the Braisa is wrong. Because according to Rav Meir, even if the bottom gas has 100 or more of chulin tameim, even though if the truma falls into it, what will happen to it, Aviv? It's not, you'll be able to eat it, but you'll be able to eat it how? As chulin tameim, I would say the same thing, that this truma will never be eaten. This truma is going to be nullified. Rav Meir holds if truma won't be eaten, if it's anyways going to go into non-existent state, you can be metamed biyodayim. If the sefer of our Mishnah would be Rabbi Meir but Rabbi Yeshua, then the Braisa doesn't make sense. The top of Pei Aleph, in Rabbi Meir, then he yesh by kedei lahalois. He aim by kedei lahalois. Regardless. Afilu koshu asal letamois, but the Braisa says no, that we do differentiate. The Braisa says that if yesh by kedei lahalis, you cannot save it. Is araya, my friends, that the sefer of our Mishnah is not Rav Meir. That's what Rabbi Yosef Bar Zavida is saying. The Reisha and the sefer, both of our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yosef. That's very important. Our whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yosef. Now, what is our problem? Our problem is, what's our problem? That we see from our Mishnah that Rabbi Yossi holds, Yeshitas Rabbi Yeshua, that you cannot contaminate it biyadayim. You cannot contaminate it biyadayim. No, it's the Reisha of our Mishnah is the basic shita of Rabbi Yeshua. You can never be metamed biyadayim. I know Rav Meir disagrees with that. That we know. Rav Meir holds you can burn. We don't go with that. The reason why in the Sefer you could contaminate it biyadayim is there's something unique in the Sefer. And as we'll see, behemshech, the concept of hefsed meruba. Bottom line is that he refuted, Rabbi Yossi Bar Zevida refuted both statements of the